Welcome back to the Caregiver's Corner. I'm Lauren Maxey at NC Planning. Today I want to touch base on what is probate in North Carolina and what can we be doing now to plan to avoid it. So very, very common question that I get is what is probate? I hear a lot about probate avoidance. What exactly is that and why do I need to avoid it? So probate, North Carolina, when you have an asset in your name that is not jointly owned with rights to survivorship, that does not have a beneficiary designation on it, an asset that is solely in your name at your passing, it gets governed by the probate process. And so if you have a last will and testament in place, that's what governs where it goes through that process. If you don't, the state of North Carolina makes up a plan for you. Very commonly, it is not in line with what most people want, what most people wishes take shape of, is not what the North Carolina statutes reflect, but there's a plan there if you don't have one in a will. So point being, no rights of survivorship on something, no beneficiary designation gets controlled by the probate process if it is owned in your name at your passing. What that means is, unfortunately, the clerk of court in the county in which you reside at the time of your passing governs this process. There's an application process for someone to be appointed as the personal representative for the estate. They file inventories, they file accountings. While there is no estate tax in North Carolina for individuals, we do have fees and lovely expense through this probate process. So it is something, it caps out at $6,000. But if we have significant assets moving through that process, we can get to that cap pretty quickly. So expense, and it's also a very timely process. So on average, pre-COVID, in Wake County, we were seeing like 9 months from start to finish on these matters. Now it's anybody's guess. We have things that are still sitting, and no knock against the clerk. They do very hard work with incredibly high volumes, and their hours have been cut back, and there's only so much that they can do. So it is something, again, trying to avoid it for efficiencies from a time and money perspective, getting assets to your loved ones, to the actual individuals that you want to have receive it. This is something, what works for one person may not work for you. And so it is a very individualized review that we do with clients. Not everybody needs a trust. That's just a little secret. Not everybody needs a trust to avoid probate. There's a lot of firms out there that put everybody in a trust and go through this big expensive process. It's not needed for everyone. So what's appropriate for you could be different from your neighbor. Sit down, talk with an attorney that's experienced in this area, that knows how the probate process works, so that you can actually avoid it. As a caregiver, the other big thing I want y'all to be aware of is organization. So having a cheat sheet of where are assets, how would someone step in and go through this process? How are they owned? If they have a beneficiary designation, who's it going to? How's it structured? That little cheat sheet can be incredibly helpful. Some of the most time-consuming and consequently expensive administrations we've seen are people just trying to find stuff. And so having communication, where our assets, can be incredibly helpful. If you, the caregiver, are not the executor or personal representative for the estate, or not able to communicate that, God forbid something happens to you, having a cheat sheet there is incredibly helpful. I hope that helps. Again, everybody's circumstances, their asset picture, and their wishes are a little different. So it is something to sit down, talk about what's appropriate for you, what's the most efficient way of getting from point A to point B, and not overcomplicating it. As always, y'all, take care.